The Midwife Crisis podcast will touch on sensitive topics regarding the human body, sexuality, pregnancy, and all aspects of women's healthcare and may not be suitable for all listeners. Ho, ho, ho. I'm Kate.
And I'm PR, and this is the Midwife Crisis, because it's not just you. And I'm not down with that Santa business.
You love it. You love my little Santa hat.
Okay. It's between that and the Merkin. I don't know which one I'm not feeling more.
All right. Well, it is that time of year again. I'm dusting off all my cookbooks. We're all stressing about what we did with that master list for sending out cards. It's the holiday season.
Oh, the cards that I haven't sent since I don't know. It's been a long time.
The cards that I have to bribe my children with like snacks to get them to both smile for one photo that I can send to people. Yeah.
We took a huge all of my children came in one place from the West Coast. We all met up and we took a whole family photo with my sister and her husband and their kids last year. The only problem was an hour before the photo shoot, my daughter tripped in my house and broke her nose and her foot.
That's so terrible. I'm only laughing because had I been there, it would have been me. That's exactly the kind of stuff that happens.
So we
to me.
went to the photo shoot anyway and put some makeup on her and photoshopped her face on the pictures. And right to this day, you better not ever reproduce those pictures, she says. But yes, that's what happened last year. The holiday season. That's what happened to our Christmas card. There was no Christmas card.
Well, that's okay.
Only in our imagination. She happened to see it on my phone in September when she was here, and she said, "Take that down right now and don't show it to another soul." Her lip was busted. Her nose was big. She wasn't feeling it at all. Anyway, it was good that that was a lot of people to get together. So I was
super
impressed. It was impressive. And my parents loved it. And it was them and all their grandchildren. And that's what happened. It was unfortunate. She couldn't even walk. Her brothers had to carry her to the place where we were taking the pictures.
Well, but you know what? That's what the holidays are all about. Just getting together, helping each other, having good stories to laugh about.
Yes, yeah. I thought so. She didn't find it funny. I hope with time she'll find it funny.
She will.
Those things always are funny. But no, we don't dust off so much cookbooks and so forth, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. The holidays can be hard for everyone, especially when you're essential personnel. And we know that midwives are essential personnel, as are physicians and emergency workers and nurses and firefighters, policemen, officers, even service, gas station workers.
Yep.
They need to work on the holidays. A lot of folks work on the holidays that we don't really give a lot of thought to because the world just keeps on rotating while we're all working.
Yep.
And this impacts the social and emotional well-being of those workers and their families and the people that they take care of. And it means different things to different people.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the holidays are different for everyone. And something, first of all, that's kind of neat is that Thanksgiving this year is the 1-year anniversary of this baby that PR and I have together, which is this podcast. We met and started talking about it, I think the week before Thanksgiving last year. We met with Baobab Tree Studios and sort of got this thing rolling. So it's pretty neat to be coming up on that 1 year.
Yes, we should have a cake.
I don't like cake that much. We should have a pie.
A pie.
Yeah.
We should have a pie.
Yep, a pie. Just not a cream pie.
I like brownies.
Okay, sure. Brownies work.
Okay, with nuts.
Why they have to be brown? Why can't we have blondies?
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, so the holidays can be totally
because you
different.
get everything your way. That's why.
I know. I'm just being a turd. So, our holidays are really different. And I think last year when we were talking a lot because we were figuring out what we were going to do with this podcast. And we were talking a lot about our own sort of traditions, and something really cool that had happened was we were talking about the holidays, and I was saying, Thanksgiving is so great and so important in my family because, it's when finally everyone gets together. It's like, one of the only days during the year that we're all together. And, I can't wait to sit around the table for hours and just talking. And PR goes, What? She's like, why do you do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? Why do I do that?
Who does that?
That's what we do. We just sit there and I'm like, and we eat all these like casseroles. And she's like,
casseroles? Okay.
And it just was a good sort of reminder about how different we are.
Yeah. We have people who hear what we do, think that we have a holiday dinner every Sunday. Mm-hmm. Every Sunday, my family, my sister and her husband and children, and I have one child left in this area. When my other children were here, they all came too. And my parents and even my ex-husband get together and we have Sunday dinner together. And this is every Sunday. And so everybody eats something different. And so we will have a meat and a fish, who's a vegetarian or a pescatarian, and who doesn't eat this and who does eat that. And so we wind up having basically 2 dinners in one. And people say, that's Thanksgiving dinner. You just have to add a turkey.
That's right.
And my sister asked for all of us to get together for brunch. And she said, let's discuss Thanksgiving dinner. And I said, let's just slam a turkey on the table. We'll be good. And we had to plan this whole menu and so forth. But we don't sit around the table for hours. We do eat and then we go back and eat some more. But in between, we watch games and we play games and we sleep. We definitely sleep and we get back up and we start over again.
Yeah.
So that's sort of our tradition. And we don't, one of my kids, he fasts for most of the day because the whole premise of Thanksgiving he has trouble with. Mm-hmm. And I tell him we're not celebrating pilgrims and, natives, that whole issue. We're just celebrating the fact that we can get together as a family and just be grateful for each other. And usually how we start is that we all say something that we're grateful for. We kind of go around in a circle. And he'll participate with that piece, but he's just like the whole idea of Thanksgiving and the slaughter and the whole thing. It just really, he finds it very disturbing, as does his sister. So, I say, well, we're not talking about that. You're not wearing a hat with a belt on it, and you're not, in knickers, and we're not doing that.
Right.
We're doing a different thing. So it sort of means something different to everyone. But we are grateful every Sunday for all of our Sunday dinners, and Thanksgiving is no different.
Yeah. So as we're sort of approaching the holidays, we thought we would talk a little bit about what that means in our area. So as midwives who, again, are essential personnel and kind of need to be there, as moms, as, members of families, and also from our patients' perspective. And so I thought we could kind of start with them. So I know a lot of people, again, when you think about the holidays, you think of the people who have to be going to work. You forget that when you're in the care profession, that means that there's people there, in the hospital. I can still remember as a new nurse working on a oncology floor that on Thanksgiving, they tried so hard, even if it was just for 12 hours, to get those patients out and home so that they could, be there to spend some time with their families. Yeah, yes. Because that is, if they were well enough to do that, they would kind of get like day passes and we would cap off their central lines and pause their chemo and just let them have that because
it's uplifting.
Absolutely.
Usually, sometimes.
Well, and we'll totally get to that as well. But yeah, so for patients and for our population of patients, typically, if they have to be in the hospital, over, the holidays, it's for, one of a few reasons. One may be antepartum issues, or basically antepartum means sort of like during pregnancy, but before labor and birth. And so things like where we may have women who have diseases of pregnancy, like preeclampsia, or maybe a previa, which is like where they have some bleeding, things like that, where they need to be monitored in the hospital. Sometimes women are in preterm labor or have broken their water, and we're trying to keep them pregnant to get their babies to keep growing inside of them. And so for a lot of these, for these patients, they don't have that opportunity to go home. And it really means sort of living in the hospital, and living in the hospital
Right.
and missing out on all of these holidays can be really, really hard. So, that can be tough for patients who are inpatient. Also, if you're just pregnant, a lot of people are worried about traveling during the holidays. There's a lot of car accidents. People are drinking and tired and not paying attention. Or maybe people are nervous to travel. There's a myth, I think, that a lot of pregnant women think they can't travel for, the majority of their pregnancy. Whereas actually, as long as you and your baby are well, you can travel right up through like 36 weeks by air. So, that is something that can hold people back. Concerns about illness, germs. I mean, everyone has that like one family member who gives those sloppy kisses, And you're just like, anything that has ever been in their mouth is now probably
On
in
your
mine.
face.
You're like, I don't know. I accidentally inhaled when they came towards me, and now I'm eating their germs. So yeah, I mean, like when you're pregnant and slightly immunocompromised, that can be daunting, You don't know who got their vaccinations, all that stuff. Guilt about bothering the on-call provider. I know this firsthand. So when I went into labor with my second, it was Thanksgiving. And well, I'll backtrack for a second. I did not go into labor. It was Thanksgiving and my water broke. And I had just passed my midwifery boards, and I knew very well that my water had broke, but I was in hard denial because I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a little bit of a jokester. And I had been joking with the physician that was on call for weeks about how I was going to make them catch my baby, and it was going to just be the two of us on Thanksgiving. And he was like, no. And so then when my water broke, I was like, oh, shit. I have to tell him. And so anyway, so I was like, no, my water totally didn't break. And then I'm sitting kind of like awkwardly in my mother-in-law's dining room, and I can just feel this like gush of fluid coming out of me. And I said to my partner, I was like, can you go get me another pad out of my bag? Because this one's like saturated. And I'm like all weird. And my mother-in-law's like, what is going on?
Were you ruining the chairs?
Oh, totally ruining her chair. And she's like, what is going on? And finally I stood up and I was like, my water broke. And the first thing that her sister says is, oh my God, shouldn't you call your doctor? And I was like, lady, I am my doctor. I'm the midwife and everything is fine. So I was term, clear fluid, didn't need any antibiotics. So I was just waiting for labor. But so anyway, so when I finally did have to get in touch with my doctor, he thought I was kidding. He was like, ha, ha, ha. And I was like, no, I'm serious.
True story.
My water broke. And he was like, oh man, can I finish my turkey? And I was like, yeah. And then long story short, I never went into labor and had to be induced the next day. So, but
fakery abounds.
Fakery. But I knew that guilt. I felt so bad about dragging people in because I know how, I didn't want to be the one reason why they had to miss out on their family. So going back to patients, I think that guilt can be really strong. And additionally, there's a feeling of isolation. So for patients who, again, have to be in the hospital for different antepartum reasons, they're already super isolated. A lot of times if they have other kids at home, their partner's probably not staying with them. They're probably at their house with their kids, and they've already sort of reached out and gotten all these resources, and they don't want to disrupt their family, and it's tough. So what do you think? How can we improve it for patients? Well, first of all, I think we can reinforce to our patients that on-call workers are there for their urgent needs. So if you have one, you can absolutely call us. So
remember that we picked this career.
That's right.
And so the fact that we're on 24/7 or we're covering a holiday, that's part of the job. That's what we're there for. So, and if you're being cared for by someone who's grumpy for that reason, you need to get away from them.
Yeah, totally.
Stat.
And again, my on-call person was gracious and was happy to have me come in, although I didn't end up needing to. If the patient is is inpatient, meaning in the hospital, we do, and I know the hospital is wonderful about this, invite patients to decorate their rooms, to share in their traditions. I've seen many times where patients will say, I just had this family from this place and they brought this food with them because this is what they eat and all of that. So and encouraging them to share with us, having their family visit. I mean, I think most people are lucky enough that they do have someone that'll come visit them on the holidays and spend some time with them. I recall working on our antepartum floor as a nurse and having someone bring all of Thanksgiving. I mean, like boxes of food.
Wow.
And, 6 people into their room because they wanted to have Thanksgiving together.
Very nice.
Adding special touches. So again, having treats for patients or, decorating yourself when you're rounding.
Oh, I know you would do that.
I do that. I last year worked on Christmas and I had antlers that I wore all day.
Of course she did.
Just because whatever. It's fun. And, you want the person to feel special too. And I encourage the person to call their baby Jolly Old St. Nicholas, which they did not. But I'm not taking it personally.
Absolutely not.
I think Jolly Old St. Nicholas is a really good, proper name. That could be a president.
Listen, okay, just for one moment, Jolly Old St. Nicholas is male or female?
Either.
What?
We don't know.
Jolly Old St. Nicholas is what color? What culture?
Any color? Anything. I don't care.
Yeah. Now.
All right, fine.
Okay.
Fine.
It can carry on, but
4th of July, call your baby Patriot.
I'm saying it doesn't apply to everyone, but that's okay.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right.
You know what? I'm just not to be a naysayer about Jolly Old St. Nick and all that stuff. When we had our first child, my husband at the time said, "Oh, there will be none of that Santa business." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Absolutely not. I'm not going to have my child have this image in his head that this jolly old St. Nicholas white guy with a white beard and the whole big belly and the whole jolly guy is the one who comes and brings him all the gifts that I worked really hard to provide for him."
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And so he said that is, and I was like, but there's magic in it, even if it's just magical until you find out that your parents are big fat liars. But up until that point, it's just so magical.
Yeah.
And I said, "You'll never believe anything like that ever again in your life." And he said, "I never did from the beginning. There are 7 of us." Oh. Now, how do you think that worked out? There was no such person. So we compromised our sort of practices and, we had to come up with something. And our kids were like, "That's you. Is that you? That's you."
I love that. Well, I've actually seen this initiative recently where people are encouraging, people who do celebrate, Christmas and Santa or that sort of tradition to give the bigger gifts from the parents because they don't want children whose parents maybe can't afford bigger gifts to think, why didn't Santa bring me, the Xbox or whatever? And I'm just like, yes, I fully agree with that. And really with my kids, we just do one gift from Santa. And we were not going to do Santa either. We didn't actually introduce Santa till my oldest was, I think at least 3. We just, kind of celebrated and said, this is our holiday time. And we had presents and stuff. And I would joke with my child, who, as it turns out, is very astute and remembers everything about the Krampus, which, if anyone knows, is kind of like the anti-Santa who comes and rounds up bad kids, throws them in a little sack on his back, brings them back to his cage, whips them. So I'd be like, you either get presents or the Krampus comes. And I told this to my 3-year-old. And then when I became a midwife and he had to go to daycare, the first day he ever met his new daycare teacher, she came to our house to meet him. And he told her all about the Krampus. And I was like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Did she call
DCF? No, I'm just kidding.
And then she went ham on Christmas at the daycare. It was he helped decorate their tree and they did this and they talked about Santa and Santa this and Santa that. And it was like a little earworm for him. And then after that, he was like, Santa, Santa, Santa.
Right.
And so like he pretty much made that decision. So,
right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, it's usually your friends that I remember my daughter coming home and saying, there is no Santa. And I said, what? And she said, there's no Santa. The Jewish kids did a presentation today. We got dreidels, and she plops the dreidel on the table, and we got all this stuff. And she said, and they said, what? Santa? That's hocus pocus. Just stop it. That's your parents.
Yeah.
Now here, play with this dreidel. We're going to tell you how to use it. Sing the song. So she sings the song to me, and I said, those little monsters.
We are so on a sidetrack, but I just want to add one more thing because it makes me really happy. On a similar note, the first time like Easter came around, again, we're not really like religious, but that fun, like we're going to hide eggs and all that stuff. We were like, we're going to do this. And I asked my son, like, what kind of things he thought the Easter Bunny might bring him. And he was petrified. And he was like, I don't want the Easter Bunny to come in my house. And he was so scared of the Easter Bunny. And he wouldn't stop talking about how scared he was about it. That finally I said, listen, kid, I'm just going to get you like some Matchbox cars. So just tell me which ones you want. It's from me. Like there's no Easter Bunny.
Right.
And I don't think he remembers that now. But it was just so funny because it actually freaked him out thinking that like a strange, gigantic bunny was going to be in his house. And I was like, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
It is super scary. So,
And the whole egg bunny connection.
Yeah.
Like, what is the connection?
Yeah, we got to redo. We're going to do an episode about sexual education. We'll add the Easter Bunny in there.
How that makes no sense.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so back to our topic of our patients. You're absolutely right. And I was just kind of being silly, but I
was being a little serious.
Yeah, but
I
could have totally like offended someone for sure. Saying you should name your baby Jolly Old Saint Nicholas. But I hope that they knew I was doing it in jest, and I will think twice now before suggesting that name. Now I'll just stick to my other names like Rock Garden, which is just neutral names.
Yeah, I like it. It's very strong.
All right. So finally, with our patients, for patients who have just had a baby and might be able to go home on the holidays, I think the nicest gift we can give them is to round early. And so rounding is when the on-call person comes into the hospital and sort of takes over care, and we change shifts at about 7 a.m. And if on a holiday you can get in there and send that person home so that, maybe they have other sweet babies at home that they want to celebrate with, like get them out of here, so that they can go home and celebrate with their family. Don't be dragging your feet and rolling in at 11 a.m. because that's not nice.
After you opened all your gifts at home.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's the sacrifice we make for our patients.
Absolutely. I mean, can you think of anything else about sort of like the patient perspective and the holidays?
No, I think that, just working the holidays is just always hard.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a little bit after the break. We're going to take a quick station break and we'll be right back. Greetings, and this is Wine Time with Grown Ass Woman, an intergenerational conversation with Ife Michelle. I'm Sexy.
And Sharon Leanne. You make me want to add a name. Make sure you hit us up. We want to hear from you. Again, our email is
gawomenspeak@gmail.com.
All right, and we are back from our break. This is the Midwife Crisis podcast, and I'm Kate, and we were just talking a little bit about the holidays. So the holidays when you're an essential personnel, when you need to work, or we just talked about when you're the patient and you're, kind of stuck needing care over the holidays and how that can be hard and how we can make that better.
I'm going to talk a little bit about when you're the provider, when you're the midwife, and, working major holidays is hard. Kate, you worked.
Yeah. So I worked Christmas last year. Yep. And it was pretty tough. I was the only provider in-house from, a private practice. I remember pulling into the garage and it was like
empty.
It was like a ghost town.
town.
And I just literally was like tearing up. I was like, this is fine. I love my job because I really do. But it was a little sad being kind of alone.
Yeah, I bet. But this is what you signed up for. And now you don't have to be on Christmas this year.
Woo!
Speaking of cultural sensitivity, which we addressed a little bit before the break, you're asking your patients about their cultural practices, but also your coworkers, your colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody doesn't celebrate in the same way. I think we made that point pretty
Yep.
clear. Some do celebrate Hanukkah, some
Mm-hmm.
celebrate Christmas. So some Three Kings, and every year I have to explain why I'm not at work on January 6th,
Mm-hmm.
and unless it's on a weekend. And for some, New Year's Eve is more important to them than the Christmas holidays
Yep.
or even Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So it just kind of depends. You have to have conversations with people. I think communication, I think we've always focused on trying to communicate, like to promote communication as a way to bridge any kind of gaps that you have with your patients, with your colleagues, and with your community. And
Absolutely.
that's just super important.
Yeah. And you coming and, making sure that you are trying to be inclusive and letting people know when maybe they're not being inclusive is important. And then you being receptive to that. Too.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And, sometimes they'll say, well, what about Kwanzaa? Tell me about Kwanzaa. And I say, let's Google it because... because I haven't, I've always wanted to celebrate because they have, 7 principles and they're really important that address behavior in the community. But we haven't had that opportunity. And I'm always working the day after Christmas anyway. I've been very fortunate in my career to kind of finagle my schedule so that I have not worked the actual Christmas holiday nor the Three Kings holiday, which we celebrate both. And now the position that I'm in, holidays are not, that's not part of my deal. So I'm so grateful that I've had that kind of, that sort of luck or whatever you want, that blessing, that's however you want to put it. That's been really good for me, but everybody doesn't. So you have to, I think it's really important to be sensitive to that. How can we help each other and help ourselves? We talked about helping out patients, alternating with who you're covering midwives.
Right.
So in the practice that Kate is in, and I used to be a part of that practice, there are 6 midwives. And so...
Yeah. So alternating. So, I did my time last year. And so in theory, I shouldn't have to work Christmas now for 5 years.
Yeah, that would be, hopefully that that works out.
Fingers crossed.
And in 5 years, your kids will be a little older
Yeah.
and they understand what you do and
Yeah.
that's what's going on. If you have a collaborating MD, talk with them. If Christmas morning is very important to you or you have religious services, then you let them know and you try and work something out if you have a good relationship with that person. For some people, Christmas Eve is more important than Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've learned over the years. Folks want to go to church or they want to open gifts on Christmas Eve. I know with my in-laws, they always open gifts on Christmas Eve over Christmas. And Christmas was a day to just kind of recover from Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So it's our 2 families. It kind of works out because we get to cover all the bases.
Mm-hmm.
But you can barter with your colleagues. If someone loves Halloween and wants to be
It's
off,
true.
or 4th of
always say
July
that,
and
yep.
you want to swap, then you make your own traditions.
Yep.
And you can do that anyway, in terms of you can make your own traditions with your family. When your children are very little, I learned, even though I didn't have to work the particular Christmas holiday, but I learned that you could create traditions, and that's what matters most to your children, not so much the date. When they're young, they don't know the calendar.
Yep.
And so I've tried to tell some of the younger midwives and nurses that I work with, your children are 3 and 1 or however old they are. They don't know the calendar. So you know the calendar. Don't don't pawn off your emotions onto them.
Yeah,
Just
that's true.
pretend that Christmas is the day before or after, whichever you want it to be. And then they'll just be excited because you tell them to be excited.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so it works out. And I think, with my own children, three kings, if they, wanted to go to school, they could go to school. If they didn't want to go to school, most of the time they went to school because something was going on at school that they wanted to partake in. But then that morning, they always got up and they opened their gifts. There was a tradition that we had where they had to prepare something for the camels. They made a shoebox. They put grass in it. They wrote a letter to the three kings telling them what they'd like and how grateful they've been for already the things that they had received. And so it was a little less about all the material items that they got over the previous holiday and gifts from family and that kind of thing. And it was just sort of give some thought to it and put some thought behind it. And that's Three Kings is a holiday that's very common in the Puerto Rican community.
Mm-hmm.
And so and even actually not just on the island, but here in this community where we live, it happens to be pretty popular. And so in this town, Three Kings is a day off.
Wow.
In this town where we live. So it's pretty nice for those kids. My kids didn't grow up in this town, so I told them it's an option.
Yeah.
And, but you can make your own traditions, and that's something that they still remember doing. I think they remember that more because they never put out cookies for jolly old Saint Nick, as you would say. So that's something that they do remember preparing for it and sort of the custom behind it and that kind of thing. But back to your own colleagues, create your own traditions with your family, and that helps you get through it. And then try and just make it show some gratitude for what you have. I'm a glass half full kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always grateful for what's in the glass as opposed to what's out of the glass. So that's sort of how I look at things. But maybe people will say, well, your life is better than others, but you don't really know anything about my life. So you just have to, I just look at things and then I say, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
Which brings me that whole tradition about the three kings and the camels and so forth to the fake it last year. Kate, you want to talk about what you did with the letter from Santa to your kids?
Yeah. So knowing it was my holiday last year, I wrote a letter to Santa from my kids. I got I did calligraphy on it and sparkly paper and a really pretty box. And I left it for my kids and was like, hey, what's this? And, it said their names on it, and they opened it up. And it just basically said to them that they were going to get an early Christmas because their mommy had to help people. And my kids were super pumped. Like, they did not care at all. They at the time were 6 and 3, and they were just like, yeah, that means I get presents earlier. And I'm so lucky again that my family is super supportive and everyone was on board, and in their matching jammies all came over and we, celebrated. That was all my mother-in-law. She's the best. But they celebrated with me and were willing to sort of change the holiday, so that I could be included. And it was really, really nice. So it worked fine.
The thing we, also for the holiday is we all do a sleepover.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm always peer pressuring my brother-in-law and his girlfriend to sleep over. I'm always like, it's really late and we're going to be playing games. You should totally just stay here. And I think they're always like, no, thanks.
Well, we used to have a party every year, and then we
that.
just had sleepovers afterwards. Everyone,
That is
my
so
parents,
awesome.
my sister, her husband, her kids, and so they're all their stuff. They would drag it all to my house, and then
Oh my gosh.
we would just put it in front of the fireplace and have big name cards for whatever each child was getting.
Oh.
So all 5 kids just got their stuff, and it was really fun.
That
Now
sounds
they're
amazing.
all older, so we just go to my parents and we sleep over, and they don't have big name cards with a bunch of toys, but we just spend the time eating and drinking and playing games and just having fun, enjoying each other's company. We
Totally.
really don't do much of the gift giving thing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, and I really felt that way. Like the first couple holidays and the first birthdays I had for my kids, like I always said, no presents. They're little. They're not going to remember any presents. They don't need anything. We did donations. One of my friends had used to have a nonprofit called a very merry birthday.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And yeah, and so we would choose a child and take their wish list and do gifts for them. And so that didn't make too much of a difference until my kids got older. And, again, I think got influenced and started getting really into the holidays. And it's interesting how your traditions sort of just, for us, evolve. Because
They do evolve.
My husband and I really were not, again, particularly religious. And a lot of holidays, come from that. And I, like your kiddos, was pretty uncomfortable with Thanksgiving as well. But to have that excuse to all be together and just so we also, like you said, talk about being grateful and are really just trying to get together to celebrate each other and eat good food and spread love. And, again, I just have to sidebar for a second. I keep going back to the jolly old St. Nicholas thing because I just keep thinking, in my naivety and in my privilege, I think I totally just like blanked on how it even could matter for someone. And I'm just so grateful that you pointed it out to me because I was just like, I'm just being, silly, but totally it could
I'm not going to rob you of it. You're still
No, fine. I know, but still. But it's just funny because you're like, well, what about the Santa? And I'm like, well, what about him? Like, because again, I don't, like, we never really celebrated. So I never honestly even put a thought to it. Like if he's black or white or Asian or,
right.
Like it was like Macy's. Like I hear at Macy's, they have like every nationality Santa. And it's like, that's my house. Like, I don't care. We don't have any, I don't even think we have any Santa things. Actually,
cool.
When we just went to New Orleans, we found a Santa that's riding an alligator. And he is a Santa of color. And he's going to be on my tree this year. So, but it's so interesting because I have the ability to think that way. And so, again, I appreciate you pointing that out to me.
You're welcome. One thing I don't feel very often, and I feel very grateful that I don't feel this, and that is sadness at this time of year. And it is okay when you're sad, especially if you're working and you want to be with your family or doing something else, even if you're just taking a nap.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
I mean, you worked on Christmas.
Yeah. I will say I am an emotional roller coaster of a person. And I didn't think I would have sadness because I had my Christmas. And like you said, my kids didn't care. It was a different day and we had already celebrated, but I was still pretty sad and I definitely shed some tears. But I told myself, like, you are so lucky that you get to be a part of this person's, life and
birth if they're having a baby.
And they did celebrate Christmas. They were super pumped to have like a quote unquote Christmas present.
Oh.
And so I was thinking every year when this family is celebrating Christmas, like I'll be part of that story and that holiday. And it ended up being absolutely lovely. And I ate a ton of junk food. Holiday on-call carbs certainly do not count. So it's probably multiple pudding cups in there. And, just like enjoyed it. And it ended up being great. And, in the end, it was fine. And yeah, but I did have some sadness in the beginning. And I'm, thankful that I was able to turn it around.
Good. I'm glad that you did. I won't say that I have sadness on any holidays, but when I've had to work all night the night before the holiday, I'm usually like a zombie the next day. And every opportunity I'm sleeping and people are like elbowing me. And I'm like some old drunk in the corner. I don't need to drink because I'm just no good because I've had no sleep, but I'm still trying to participate in what's going on. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the deal. It's okay. It's fine. I'm there with everyone. So I'm still happy, even though I'm looking a little crazy. And that one of the things that it kind of strikes a thought is there are pros to missing the holiday.
That is true.
You don't have the stress of making dishes or getting the kids together or traveling or dealing with your sloppy relatives that are, intoxicated or giving you spitty kisses or squeezing your butt or doing whatever they're doing that's inappropriate, or fighting, because some people do get together on holidays and they fight, they argue, and they carry on terribly.
And we have a very like polarized political climate right now, and for many people that also crosses families and friends, and so that can get awkward, which we definitely have sort of a silence on that topic rule, just like we just are not going to talk about, we're just going to talk about other good stuff, because this is not the place or time. Sometimes you have to have ground rules for holidays, because otherwise they'll get ruined. If one person makes one remark and everybody doesn't agree, woo-hoo! And so, but if it's a place where it does tend to get tumultuous, hey, you don't have to be there. You're on call. That's
true. There's your out right there. I think someone is paging me right now. I have to go. Also that there's always next year, and each time you can try and make it better, make it special, and you won't be working, and try and do it the way you want to do it. And there's that chance that they won't even need you. And so you can be there with your family, even though you are on call. You can't be drinking hot toddies and and spiked nogs, but you're still there with your family. That's what's most important. And when you do get called in, like Kate said, your patient is very happy to have you there. And if you're there with a smile on your face, that's even better.
That's right. Yep. As we say, every person deserves a midwife. So even on quote unquote special days, right? I mean, we know holidays. We know that people have, needs, and certainly babies come all hours, all times. And so as professionals, this is part of it. And so going into it, we have to know that we're taking that on. And you know what? Like, we're lucky to have that. So
we are. It's really good work. I love what I do.
Yep.
And the day that I don't, I'm going to stop.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
do something else. I think that about winds it up.
Yeah, definitely.
We'd like to thank Baobab Tree Studios, our friends, family, and you who all make this podcast possible.
Please be sure to subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen. Make sure you like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Midwife Crisis Podcast, or you can always email us at midwifecrisisPodcast@gmail.com. If you are a provider out there, a nurse, an emergency personnel, going through this holiday stuff, tell us about it. Share it with us. We want to hear how you cope or how you make it special for people who, might not have the privilege to be with their families on those days.
Funny stories. Welcome.
Absolutely. We'll take anything. So make sure you hit us up. You can message us on social media or send us an email. So until next time, happy holidays, all of them.
And if you can, have a loved one check your chest. Felicidades.